Welcome back to Profits on Purpose, the podcast for e-commerce and consumer products founders who are looking to scale their businesses both profitably and purposefully. I'm your host, Nate Littlewood from Future Ready CFO, where I help seven-figure brand founders build the financial and operational foundations that they need to scale to eight figures. Today, I have two guests joining me, Jack Davis and Jacob Tubis, who are the co-founders of Byte'm Brownies, which is a premium brownie brand taking the New York City food scene by storm. Together, these guys have built Byte'm into nearly 1,000 retail doors all across the city and even beyond, I think. From iconic stores like Fairway and Westside Market to neighborhood bodegas. All along the way, they've kept this thing bootstrapped and they've stayed true to their belief, which is that clean, premium ingredients don't have to mean an ultra premium price tag. But that road has not always been a smooth one. From manufacturers disappearing overnight to suppliers losing thousands of dollars worth of product without a whole lot of accountability, these two have certainly learned some lessons the hard way about what it really takes to scale a food brand when not every partner has always got your back. Jack, Jacob, welcome to the show. I'm really looking forward to chatting about the journey with you guys.
Thanks, Nate. Likewise.
Cool. Guys, I'd love to get started here just learning a little bit about your backgrounds and, the backstory of the company. Could you each give us a quick intro, tell us what you did before, and how did you guys come together to be running this brand?
Yeah. So my background is in tech. I actually met Jacob in college at American University. We graduated 2020 and we met each other around 2016 in the freshman dorms.
Yeah. On my background, so Jack and I became friends freshman year of college. We went to the gym a lot. We got into the food scene. Gym kind of went to the wayside. We always had a lot of business ideas along with our other friends in college, but we were just always really pushing, trying to learn more about how the business world works, how finance works broadly. Around COVID, we decided to go into a protein ice cream company that was very short lived, but we fully
Oh,
developed a
wow.
product.
Okay.
Yeah. So a bit early there. I think our friends who are in the space now, like Smear Case, Protein Pints, Sweet
Mhm.
Cane, a lot of them have, done a much stronger recipe than we had initially.
So one of the things I found really interesting about our conversation the other day was the brand positioning that you spoke about, which is premium mass market. Can you tell us a little bit about what that actually means and how you came to, be positioning the brand that way?
Mhm.
Yeah.
We think there's a lot of companies that have done a really great job. So we talk about Tate's cookies, and I think they're a really great job where it's a slight elevation compared to
Hmm.
maybe on Oreos, Chips Ahoy, your classic chocolate chip cookie. But it still is a mass market product in the sense that it's not only in an Erewhon or like a very high end luxury store in New York City. So
Okay.
still mass people can enjoy that product. You don't need to have that premium, dollar in your wallet. I think another great one was Poppy. You could find them kind of in a
Mm,
Walmart, but even some of those high end stores because it really has that great brand value.
got
Yeah,
it.
I think going into the broader elements of it is we've noticed that, consumer palates, my grandfather came here back in the 50s and the food was terrible in the US. He came from
Mm,
Germany.
hmm.
Consumer palettes have become increasingly more complex. Consumer demands for their products and the quality of it have increasingly become higher, which is a good thing because we should have more accountability from our food chain. But so
Yeah.
many people choose, especially now, to focus on the protein, to focus on the creatine, the ashwagandha, the lion's
Mm,
mane, or focus on these hyper low calorie options, with different sugar substitutes. But we've
right.
seen already historically, the Ben and Jerry's of the world, the Tates, like Jack mentioned, have really succeeded because they focus on the quality in terms of the flavor and the enjoyability, and kind of
Right.
rooting back to what food is initially as this community activity where people have a
Yeah.
sense of joy to it that, the
Hmm.
macros alone just don't tell the whole story on.
Okay. Interesting. Something else that I wanted to ask you about, you seem to have quite a focus here on, clean label, higher quality ingredients. Am I reading that correctly? And if so, what would you say that actually means in terms of your cost structure? The stance you've taken on ingredient quality, is that, does that mean the cost of goods sold is 5, 10%, 50% higher than it might otherwise be?
Yeah, I'd say the best way to frame Byte'm is as a flavor first company. So our
Okay.
priority is giving you a quality product that tastes as good as Jack's mom's recipe or the bakery brownie you grew up with or your mom or grandma's recipe. So it's really
Right.
not compromising on the sense of like what a true brownie is. It's very chocolatey, it's very rich, it's very, strong vanilla and butter notes, and it has just that sense of like satiation that you get when you
Hmm.
have the product.
Okay.
Beyond that, then we work to have the cleanest we possibly can within the form factor, given we are a shelf-stable product. So it's
Hmm.
really an emphasis on the highest quality flavor profile, making sure it's something that's accessible to people, hence the premium mass market of something really, it's a little treat everyone can enjoy, and then
Okay.
working for the cleanest possible options that we can get towards that.
Yeah, I'll add a couple things. I think, with a lot of things, there's always a diminishing return. So we try to get that like maybe an 8 out of 10 in terms of amazing taste, but the brownie's not wrapped in a gold foil or anything like that where it costs
Right.
$30. But obviously, there's other competitors out there that use a lot of these gum binders or vegetable oils to make up for it. And we don't have as cheap a price point because those are usually
Mhm.
substitutes that take out the flavor but bring down the cost. So we are more
Yeah.
expensive, but we try to find that middle ground where it's again a mass market premium. So it's everyone can, go out of their way to maybe pay an extra dollar or two, but we're not trying to
Mm.
charge that an arm and a leg where it's like 10 extra dollars just for a brownie. So it is,
Okay.
yeah, 10 to 20% maybe more expensive than like a bottom of the barrel brownie.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. And talk to me about go to market strategy. My understanding is that you guys have had a fairly retail centric
Mhm.
focus thus far. In a lot of the brands and clients that I work with, we'd often opt to have a little bit more of an e-commerce focus earlier on because of the better cash flow terms and the ability to iterate and pivot and evolve. How did you settle on the more retail centric approach, and how's that kind of working out so far?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say to start, so Jack happened to work right around the block from Pop Up Grocer in New York, which is, very
Uh-huh.
beloved. That's a great introduction to market for a lot of people. I mean, it really sort of kickstarted because originally we had planned on going e-com focused. Jack was working in tech sales in the e-com space and the influencer marketing space.
Okay,
And really,
interesting.
the demand we saw in retail, the reaction we had so quickly, even with, different branding that we have now, which is performing a lot better. Um,
Mhm,
it's so quickly snowballed and just grew, and we have these great retail partnerships we wanted to make sure we were continuing to fill. And there's
mhm,
something too about the immediacy, especially in New York of all places, where the CPG community is just so prominent right now. It's thriving and it's just growing so rapidly that being
mm,
able to put in front of these people, even if the cash flow terms are a bit worse, even if it's a bit more difficult to have to go bodega to bodega, um,
mhm.
it gave us a lot of experience that we think is making us much more savvy and much more prepared for the national launch and now for our scaling and e-com that we're going into.
And I
Mhm.
think to, add to that, the reason we originally went into pop-up grocer was to add trustworthiness, so that people knew there was like a physical place and we could film some videos, UGC or other kinds of content that people could
Mhm.
see this is an actual place. You can buy the product. People online
Yeah,
know it's like, a legitimate thing, not just an AI product, which there's a lot of this these days.
yeah.
And because of that, the there was like a lot of opportunities where other people just told us, "Oh, maybe, it's doing really well here. Maybe go to Butterfield Market," which we love those people on the Upper East
Yeah.
Side. And then one thing leads to another. All of a sudden, people are telling you to put your product in, X, Y, and Z. And we got reached out to by a lot of retailers, obviously as well. They saw the product
Okay.
in there, hotspot. So we really love Pop Up Grocer. It's a really great springboard, and they really focus on bringing in new brands to start with. There's some other,
Yeah.
editors now that are also doing a really great job and like similar services of bringing new brands and giving them like a market, a place to launch the product.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I think too, again, it's very unique and it's honestly a strategy I wouldn't necessarily recommend for many products. Generally, beverage is the best to go sort of that bodega route first. We just
Mhm.
felt as for our brand specifically, we thought about what the essence of a brownie is. It's very community driven, it's very nostalgic driven, and it's very sort of like in a
Mm.
personal relation.
Yeah.
Of people just having such strong emotive ties to it and the disconnect that exists in stores before that between,
Mm.
a grocery store brownie we always think of as like a hockey puck traditionally, the normal 2 bites, little bites, all of that, where they
Mhm.
taste delicious as a kid, but for our current palates and the palates of, now 70,000 people we've sampled to,
Yeah.
it just doesn't match up with the sort of the strong emotive reaction of the product. And because
Mhm.
we were so community driven, being in these stores had a lot more value than the sheer economics of the thing.
Mhm. Yeah, and
Interesting. Okay.
Mhm.
I'll touch on one other point real quick, like you were saying, retail, it is very, like, cash flow based, and so
Yeah.
we are at a pretty good point, even though we have a lot of inbound offers, to, like, expand even to further retail. We thought 1,000
Mhm.
is, like, a clean number, so we might try to focus a little bit more on the D2C. We have a lot of demand there too, and I think you can
Mhm.
control a little bit more your economics. So I think, there is always a question of like what to do, but I think each company is different. And I think D2C, it's like really great opportunity as well. So we're going to focus more on that area just because we've been so focused, like heads down on retail. I think they're both great. You just got to like weigh your options depending on the brand and like, how it's
Okay.
starting.
Okay. So first chapter was 1,000-ish retail stores, which I
Mhm.
understand have had a fairly New York geographic focus.
Hmm.
It sounds like we're
Yeah.
getting close to the end of that chapter. The next
Mhm.
chapter is about e-commerce and direct to consumer.
Mhm.
What happens after that?
Yeah, so I mean, we're very fortunate that we have a lot of great upcoming distribution partners for national scale. We've, had some really
Uh-huh.
great. I will say, it's a caution. So for those who don't know, Expo West is the largest food and beverage show in the country, focused
Yeah.
on natural products, and we were very fortunate that our undergrad actually paid for us to go there effectively.
Oh wow.
Um,
So you guys
yeah,
just got
I
back. That was
hotel
last week,
booth.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I just got back from that.
Hmm.
We were already moving more towards this direction. We're very fortunate that Unify chose us for the Up Next program, which is,
Mm-hmm.
their emerging brands program. So we're already working with them on onboarding for a few really exciting locations we'll announce soon.
Uh-huh.
We've had the chance to, talk to some other great buyers, investors, everything at Expo that really are pushing us in an exciting direction for that sort of chapter 3 we're on.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Talk to me about the cash flow and the money side of things.
Mhm.
Getting into retail and retail distribution is a notoriously expensive exercise, and a lot of businesses like yours can go for many, many years with cash outflows by the time you're playing for all the promotions, the coupons, the free fills, and so forth. Am I correct to understand that the business is fully bootstrapped thus far?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And are you intending to keep it that way, or is there plans to raise some money at some point?
Well, I think the way that we view the whole company is, much as again in sort of the community sense that we really value long-term partners in whatever form they are, whether they're advisors, eventual investors, or, if we continue to
Mm,
do it on our own, really
mhm,
focusing on like having people who understand the mission of what we're doing over like any short-term interactions.
mhm,
Um, so our end goal is for Byte'm to be the biggest brownie company in the country. Hopefully
mm,
expanding it on that. We'll see. Um, but the goals in between are where we're flexible, and it just depends on what partners and opportunities come up.
hmm.
okay.
Yeah, I will say that, a lot of our peers that either haven't like even raised money, they typically do have backgrounds where they're very fortunate. We ourselves too, like, are pretty
Mhm.
fortunate. Not maybe as fortunate as some of the other brands we know, but I think it does take a lot of real capital. Like I'll call
Yeah.
that out because there's a lot of people maybe listening that want to start a brand and it's, not free. Obviously, that's why there's a lot of people either take like loans or different investments from VCs.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's realistically too hard to compete with a lot of these companies, like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, whatever it is, without taking VC eventually. You probably will want to grow fast and fast even can feel slow at times where it's over 5, 10 years compared
Mhm,
to bootstrapping a company to that size. It would probably take 100 years like Coca-Cola or Pepsi did. So we're
right.
always like, we've talked to a lot of different people. We haven't raised yet. A lot of our peers like have started to raise money that we know. So
Mhm.
Yeah. I
So it
mean,
sounds like
all. Oh yeah. Go ahead, please.
I was going to say, it sounds like it could still be on the radar at some point then.
yeah, I would
Yeah,
say.
I mean, again,
Yeah.
we're very end goal driven. The means of the
Mhm,
thing, like we want it to be community focused. We want it to have positive impact. Everything that's very essential to us. But the
mm,
means of partners that we work with, as long as they're driven towards the same goals as us, we're very flexible as how we get there.
mm.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think the goal really matters. Like obviously, again, to the time horizon. Like if you're trying to grow a really fast brand, like you probably will need VC money. But if you go, if it's slower and you're trying to do a less of a national business and you're like start, more in these farmers markets, you can obviously take a lot longer, but you might not. be
Mm,
able to either sell it eventually with that for as much money or like grow it nationwide again, because realistically,
mm,
again, you're be competing with like Coca-Cola or Pepsi. So I think your goal really matters and like what the consumer wants for the brand ultimately. And like nothing's wrong too with like having a slow, steady business that's going to take a bunch of
mm.
years. So you
Yeah,
just got to
ab-
have that in mind, I would say.
absolutely. Absolutely. Tell me, is brownie demand highly seasonal? I'm thinking there might be a bit of a demand uptick in winter. Is that accurate?
I would say historically that's been the case. What we're finding is similar to like
Mm,
before cookies hit the market and Ben and Jerry's too, that like one thing that's a real advantage in the premium mass market category, we think, is that it can be have heavy periods obviously during like the winter historically, but
mm,
also form factor, convenience elements. We know a lot of people like during this past summer, we had tremendous uptick in some stores because people just want to go to the park, they rip open the bag, they share it with their friends at a picnic.
mm. Okay.
And I think, part of that too is with our form factors, having the bite size changes it
Hmm.
from traditional dessert product, which would very much be very winter dependent, into something
Yeah.
that's a bit snack focused. And we
Okay.
think, that element of convenience, which is such a key term, I think, in the space,
Yeah.
is so essential to what really determines like how you can move away from just being a very seasonally dependent product. Not that that's wrong, but
Mm.
it makes it a much more versatile product, and, as we expand, we're gonna rotate out different SKUs that we think is gonna keep demand up throughout the year.
Yeah,
Got it.
form factor
Got it.
definitely enable like easy consumption or like and even different types of consumption. I
Mhm.
think Graza and like some of these other new companies that released recently are very cool. There's like a peanut butter
One Trick
drizzle.
Pony.
Yeah,
Oh, Jersey
that
too.
one trick
Yeah,
pony as
Jersey's
well.
cool
They do
too.
like a cool upside down flip, and
Mhm.
then there's a honey department. I think it's yeah, it's
Yeah,
like honey in a tube. It's really cool. So
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So what I'm hearing here is we've got a bootstrap brand. I gather you've put some of your own money into it. I
Mhm.
don't know. I'm not going to ask what the magnitude of that is, but I'm assuming you're not exactly drowning in cash right now. Um, but we've got a business that has somewhat of a seasonal pattern to it. You've got potentially new product launches coming out
Mhm.
throughout the year to level things out, and then you've got the ongoing lumpiness of purchase orders and productions and supply chain, which like everyone in the physical goods space kind of deals with. There's
Mhm.
a lot of moving parts there, right? From a cash flow and profitability perspective. How are you guys going about managing all of that and staying on top of it?
Yeah, we
Mhm.
recently too hired a fractional CFO, and then we're
Mhm.
like a fractional accountant, like bookkeeper, because
Yeah.
that stuff is very important. Even if a lot of people think they have a background in that stuff, it's probably good to even hire a person that has experienced it or like done that work with multiple businesses.
Yeah.
Um, so that is one thing we did just to make sure that stuff is solid. And they work with other. I would recommend getting referrals, in the food space specifically if you're in CPG.
Mm. Mhm.
Another too is we're focusing on simplifying everything. So before
Yeah.
it was sort of what we call 200 IQ plays. It's these ideas that you really try and do these things that are, if everything lines up just right, it's an incredible opportunity. But when you're
Okay.
scaling out and growing long term, those plays are just as likely to be the cog in the machine as they are to be, even more likely realistically the cog in the machine rather than your sort of like Hail Mary opportunity. So trying to like remove ourselves and give ourselves strategic opportunities for these sort of like high risk plays, but not
Yeah.
have it be the type that would jeopardize any other key element of the business because now we have people who rely
Mm.
on us, production partners, our, retailers, everyone.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's not
Mhm.
bad to take bets that have a lot of upside or, even like amazing amounts of upside. But if you continuously are taking bets like that, it can slow things down of just doing the simple, like, day in, day out.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And that's why too, again, growth, you gotta be somewhat steady with it. We think we might do a little bit like more direct to consumer, like we were saying, 1,000 stores is like a good
Mm.
amount. We're always open to continuing to expand, but like you gotta, a lot of companies typically I think fail from expanding too fast compared to not expanding fast enough. It feels like.
Mhm. Okay.
Hmm.
Cool. I want to circle back to the fractional CFO thing.
Mhm.
That's an interesting decision to have taken for a couple of founders who are at your stage. How many people in the company, by the way?
It's just us two, and
Just
then
the
we
two of
have
us. Okay.
Yeah.
fractional
Okay.
rows.
Okay, so two of you plus the fractional folks.
Mhm.
Talk me through how you decided that that was something that you needed. Like that was the type of support that, the company was missing.
Yeah, I think like fractional CFO, it's hard for someone to be a master at everything realistically, as much as I think a lot of founders are like, I can do everything
Mhm.
100% to the maximum, but
Yeah.
realistically, you're probably not amazing at like branding, product photography, social media, sales,
Mm,
finance, legal. Like it's hard to do all that. So I think at the end of the day, you'll eventually want to bring on people that have a background in that. And obviously, there's great AI tools now, but it's hard to know what you don't know. So it's hard to
mm,
even, ask some of these questions. You don't know the right questions to even ask, where those people can help guide you and
mm,
what other brands are doing and what is normal, amounts, like figures in your space, like how much money you should be spending on, trade promotion, for example, or what your,
mm,
margin actually should look like, stuff like that. So I think that um, we went to a couple different talks, even where people were talking about finances, and we thought it was the
mhm.
right decision because we think we're really great, at these other parts of the business. We think we're good at that too, but hard to be doing it again, all at the same time. So I think
Mm,
sometimes you can do your best work when you step out of the way and let like other people do that role that could be even better at,
mm,
than you a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think it's really opportunity cost and comparative advantage. Even if you are the best person in all of these spaces,
mhm.
CPG is a complex industry. There's a lot of depth to it, but
Yeah.
fundamentally, almost every single decision you make isn't necessarily that difficult. It's just the sheer amount of them, and that's what makes it a very
Right.
difficult industry because you're spinning so many plates. So no matter how good you are at spinning any
Mm,
one plate or even any number of plates, it's
mm,
probably going to be the case that you need to outsource some elements because, until AI is considerably better than where it is right now, you just can't manage everything on your own.
mm.
It's impossible and it's irresponsible, especially to the people who rely on it's in a physical space too, who rely on your
Yeah.
product, produce your product, who distribute your product. Because it's not just you, no matter what. There's so many people
Mm,
throughout the process. So you have to
yeah.
be accountable to them and to the brand that you're building.
Yeah. Nice one. I really respect the self-awareness and discipline. Mm,
I mean, it's easier to say than to practice. Of course, there are always times we get distracted, like Jack making our
yeah.
website today on a whim. It
Right,
happens.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just it it definitely is just the balance of all the things, and there's also so much of the learning of this too. Neither of us went to
Mm,
business. I grew up in a family business, but some of
mhm,
these like scalable elements you're mentioning, like balancing all the plates, especially early on, are going to
mhm,
provide
mhm.
a lot more efficiencies and upsides because you at least know how to talk the talk loosely enough when you have other people because it's trust but
Yeah.
verify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I think too, it's good to be a lifelong learner, and like I totally know what you mean about like the dopamine hits, where it is exciting to be
Mhm,
learning things and trying them out. But
Mhm.
yeah, I got we actually changed out our packaging too. I actually designed it originally, but at the end of
mhm,
the day, it wasn't the best ever, and that was one of the best decisions was to redo the packaging, get a professional
mhm.
agency in. But I think it brought us from point A to point B. It doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
let's say for a founder to spend all this money on an agency right when you're starting the brand. Like you haven't launched the product in the market yet. So
Yeah.
there's always steps with, different parts, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, even towards that too, so much of it is network, and I think that's something that people, it's a word that's thrown around all the time, network, community, all of these buzzwords, relationships.
Mm,
Like,
mhm.
really the depth of the just people that you meet, especially in CPG, there's so many people who are willing to work with you, to collaborate, to co-op,
Mm,
uh, and really, like, build something special.
mhm.
Like, for our design on our current packaging, that only came through a mentor of mine from where I went to law school,
Mhm.
who to business school there, connected through the school, happened to be his roommate. He tried the brownies, loved it,
Wow.
and gave us a fantastic rate, worked with an incredible team that in full
Yeah.
transparency, we wouldn't have been able to work with if we didn't have that relationship because 'cause they're incredibly
Yeah.
talented.
Yeah.
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 I think one last thing too is I feel like a CEO's job is more so like orchestration
Mhm,
and rather than again like being like a master at all these different tasks like we were saying.
mhm.
So you're really orchestrating
Mm,
all these not just like people but tasks and like making sure they all kind of fit together um
yeah.
at the right times.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate the perspective. Really interesting. Um, changing gears a little bit, I would love to chat about some of the more difficult parts of being a founder. When we spoke a couple of weeks ago, you shared with me a couple of interesting horror stories on the manufacturing and supplier side. Tell me what have been some of the toughest moments in the business's history to navigate through?
You know, I'd say generally one of the toughest things for me, because again, we really do care about like the community stuff, the relations and everything, is
Mm-hmm.
when you have people that you view as partners that you really try and be understanding of and like, give up a little bit to, get more and hopefully build more with them that, will talk the talk, but then they don't walk the walk, which is, it's really tough to see because you're really relying on
Mm-hmm.
these people, assume that they like care about what you're building.
Mm-hmm.
But the distance between the two can be really tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and an example I'd say is we had a delivery that we were expecting. The company used our account for shipment, but then they ended up shipping it. We didn't get any notice from them, requested notice. They didn't respond on it. It got lost in transit. And rather than even, offering a concession of like 50% off and we purchased the product, they said, oh, that sucks for you. And they're like, you can buy more.
Wow.
After months of contact.
Because it was purchased on your shipping account?
Yeah, even though we didn't have notice of it, nor did they ask us about
Okay.
insurance either. So, that
Right.
was a tough one.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that was rather unfortunate. But I think production too is like one of the hardest parts, and so yeah, we always try to be mindful of that. But it does always feel like for us, it's been even more so adverse than some of our peers. But I think too, it's
Yeah.
like sometimes when you go through these challenges in life, even if it was like divorce or something, I haven't experienced that, but actually, like I
Mhm.
think 50% of Americans or something like that get divorced. But when you're experiencing
Mhm.
that, it feels like you're the maybe one of the only people in the whole world experiencing that thing. Where there's
Mm.
like actually so many other people. So I think a lot of other CPG brands, as we talked with them, have also had like really, really hard times, specifically in production.
Mm.
So it's always good to be aware of that. But yeah, we've had like tons of stuff. That was like one of a list of it feels like 10 or 15 different things. Oh, it's almost like every week there's like,
Yeah, that was just emotively the one that hit hardest, not financially. There have been plenty
Right.
more.
I
But,
yeah,
see. I
yeah.
see. Well, it sounds like you've been beaten around quite a bit with this operations and supply chain, and you just mentioned there's been quite a few of these instances. I assume that as a result of all that, you've learned a lesson or two about how to vet people, like, how to trust people, whether or not you should trust people. If you could turn the clock back to an earlier version of yourself and give some advice to the younger founders who were just starting out with this journey and had all these new partnerships, relationships to forge, what would you do differently? What advice would you give from someone who hadn't yet made the 10 or 15 mistakes that you guys have?
Yeah, I think, and this is one Jack's been really good on pushing me on, is really focusing on being very, very clear with partners. It's
Mm-hmm.
very easy for you to get in your head and focus on what your needs are. And I think that has been a
Mm-hmm.
real breakthrough of recognizing, it's very easy to recognize other people are people because of course they are. But like
Yeah.
it's so easy for us just as humans to get so in our head and be in the context of what we're thinking about, of what we're doing, and that being the center of the world, because it is the center of our world.
Right. Right.
That you make these assumptions to partners, or even if you say clearly, you're not thinking about where they're at, rather than just giving
Mm-hmm.
them just the objective truth of the thing or explaining it clearly. Part of it
Mm-hmm.
explaining in a way that they can actually understand in the frame of where they're at. So,
Mm-hmm.
when we send emails now, we try and go, bullet point by bullet point, this, and be much more straightforward rather than trying to, go through the general niceties we would before. And it gets
Mm.
like
we don't try to be mean either,
so it's
though. He's not
yeah,
saying
no, 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 it's
that.
not like, of course it's still
Mm-hmm.
the hope you're doing well, all of that, but it's very clearly outlined in the thing. It's like, do this, please, do this, please, do this. Can you do this? That sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So that way
Okay.
it forms the actual proper paper trail. And it's not something you
Yeah.
can say, well, you on a call promised this to us. And they're like, we didn't. And they did, but you can't
Right.
prove it. So
Right, right. Okay. Well, that's really good advice to be, I guess, clear and detailed in terms of what you require and what they require.
Mhm.
Have you done anything differently in terms of contracts and, on the legal side, or are you more likely to go and physically visit any of these partners
Mhm.
now?
Yeah. Yeah. We
Is
were
that
early.
an important side of it?
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
say we always were trying to visit the places. I think you should definitely like, this industry specifically more than others, but even in tech, I would recommend it. But it's a lot more like,
Mm.
handshake deals, like person to person, visiting the
Hmm.
physical locations. Um, but I think too that it's just like you really gotta get to know some of these people on a person to person level because you're really going to be working with them,
Mm.
day in, day out. And yeah, again, it's just a super people business. I feel like this one is like
Yeah.
a
Mm.
lot of these old handshake deals we've, heard about from other companies too, even like Coca-Cola and Pepsi and stuff with factories.
Yep. How are you guys thinking about AI in your
Mhm.
business? I recall from our a conversation the other day, you both kind of mentioned to me that you think of yourselves a bit more as generalists as founders rather than being kind
Mhm.
of experts in any one area. And I think you made the point that in this day and age of AI, like that's an easier and easier stance to take because AI can help you go deep on a specific
Mm.
discipline or vertical very quickly. How and where are you guys using AI in the business today, and what role do you think it plays in the business, a year from now? Looking ahead into 2026, what are some of the most difficult or complicated decisions that you think you guys are going to need to make?
I think it's going to be how we increasingly scale and provide, greater value to our consumers.
Mm-hmm.
Our ambitions long term are to definitely be at a more competitive price point, compared
Okay.
to more conventional products.
Mm-hmm.
So it's part of in terms of like any form factors we introduce. We're very excited that we're working on a much smaller pack size, which would be really great for like C-store, bodega, airlines, all of that. That we've gotten great, excitement for.
Okay.
And also how we're able to expand our product lines to be more exciting and cool flavors that consumers are going to love, especially on the e-com channels and aggregate downward, while
Mm-hmm.
also not moving away from our main product line and our main goals of making the product accessible. It's so easy
Mm-hmm.
when you're in the bubble of your product 24/7, and especially when you're in like the founder and the food ecosystem constantly, that your
Mm.
product is like such old news to you. You don't want to keep talking about your product, promoting your product for the same thing. You always want some like new buzzy thing to do. It's like, oh, we have
Yeah.
this new brownie. Oh, we have this new promotion running. But the realistic thing is market penetration is so, so, so incredibly tiny for pretty much any emerging brand. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
even Poppy's at what is it like 10-15% penetration now?
Yeah, there was like
Like, yeah.
some article that was talking about the penetration of a lot of even these big brands, and like not
Mhm.
everyone knows these, big brands to us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
then the long and the short of it is just you're in such a bubble when you're doing this, and it's important to recognize how much bigger the scope is, and trying to
Mm-hmm.
constantly reach out and expand to new audiences, and don't get comfortable with where you are, especially if your
Mm.
ambition is growing.
Got it. Got it. Cool. Well, I appreciate all the thoughts there, guys. You've had an interesting journey here, and it sounds like you have taken a very mature and self-aware approach to thinking about what each of you two can do well, what you can't do well, when and how to ask for help, and I really respect that. Um, I'm going to ask you another question about kind of looking back and reflecting. I know I asked you something similar to this earlier, but let's go right the way back to the beginning of your journey as co-founders of this business. It's like day one, the company has just been set up. Given all you've learned about running this business since then and all of the surprises that you've had, what advice or heads up would you give to your younger self?
Challenges will rise because it's foolish, no matter how many podcasts you listen to, people you talk to, that nothing would go wrong, right? Like with any business.
Mm.
You're guaranteed to have multiple like things go wrong. So
Hmm.
I think that you should plan for room of margin, right? And realistically. But I think that the direct answer, if there was like one thing specifically to tell myself, it was either, yeah, maybe like look into other food scientists, maybe. Like
Yeah,
they were a
kind of
great team
feel
too, and like person.
well,
We haven't
I
even talked about food scientists yet. It sounds like
yeah.
that's a whole nother side story that we missed over.
Yeah.
There
Well,
was a bad food.
Well,
think
I think the main thing more than that, it's just making sure the partners that you're working with right away, you understand exactly what they want out of it, and you make very clear,
okay.
it's really easy, especially when you're like, you're wide-eyed and everything. You're saying, "We're gonna be the biggest brownie company in the world." Now I say it a bit
Mm,
more seriously, that we
mhm.
think that, but, like, to come into it by, like, really getting to understand the community a bit.
Wise words. Wise words. I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah.
Well, listen,
Yeah.
this has been a great conversation. Lovely to have you both on the show. Before I let you go, if people want to learn more about you and what you're up to, where should they go? And we'll include this in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best way, honestly, is through LinkedIn. So Jacob Tubis for me, Jack Davis for him.
Hmm.
Also on Instagram at Byte'm Brownie. TikTok, we're expanding out there, so Byte'm Brownies. And
Our website.
we have personal pages too. So Byte'm Jacob, Byte'm Jack, and then our website, byte'mfood.com.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks again, guys. Appreciate you coming on and good luck.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Cheers.
Take care.